You're listening to The Nourished Child, episode number 93. What do you get when you combine dairy farming, teaching, and parenthood? One busy mother. Today on the show, you'll meet Bet Howrigan, a Vermont dairy farmer, teacher, mother, and grandmother. She'll tell us what it's like to be a dairy farmer, including busting some of those common myths out there about milk, and she will share her journey as a teacher and school wellness champion. She talks a lot about raising a family on her farm, too. I was amazed at how hard this lady works, but more than that, her energy for kids, dairy farming, education, and family. I hope you'll enjoy this show. You can find today's show notes over on www.jillcastle.com/093. That's 093 for episode number 93. Let's cue the music.
Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Hey there, welcome back. I'm Jill Castle. I'm a registered dietitian and pediatric nutritionist. I started this podcast 3 years ago, and after 200,000 downloads, my mission is still the same: to help parents like you be better at nourishing your kids inside and out. I'm excited to share my interview with you this week. Dairy farming and milk is a topic that can stir up some confusion in parents, and I want to have a real farmer on the show to address what life is really like on a farm, including how the animals are cared for and how milk gets processed and what it's like to live a life on a farm. I've got Bet Howrigan on the show today. Isn't her name so cool? Bet, B-E-T. It's short for Elizabeth. I think you'll really enjoy this interview with her. But additionally, I think that what you'll walk away with, or what I walked away with anyways, was her dedication to her family, her family's dedication to the community that she lives in, her experiences as a teacher, and how those experiences have changed over the years and where she thinks schools are going, in particular with regard to wellness and nutrition. She talks about how she led wellness programming in her school up in Vermont, and she's also sprinkled in just her perspective on some of the common questions that are out there about dairy and dairy farming. But before we get going, I wanted to share a sweet message I received on my voicemail the other day from a listener named Rachel, and it made my day. It's the first time somebody's actually called me and left me a message, and I was surprised, delighted, and certainly motivated, encouraged. So I just want to play that little clip for you right now.
Hi, Jill. This is Isabel. I just wanted to thank you so much. I've been listening to your podcast. I have a 13-year-old little girl with ADHD, and I thought we were really doing poorly on the nutrition front. And since I've been listening, I feel like we're actually doing okay. And yesterday we were on our way home from school, and she had chosen to get a Coke at the concession stand. And she saw the snowball stand, and instead of us getting in a power struggle, she just went, oh. And she knew she had already made her choice to get the Coke, and so she couldn't get the snowball, and that was all that was said, and it was so nice. So I just thank you so much for your guidance and support. You really make a difference in our life. Thank you. Bye-bye.
She was so encouraging and motivating to me. You know, anybody can go out there and leave a negative review, an anonymous review, especially with social media the way it is right now. But for those of you who go out of your way to thank others or to provide encouragement or to try to motivate others to keep on doing what they're doing, I just want to say a special thanks to all of you out there who do that for others, but especially thanks to Rachel for doing that for me. So sit back, grab your coffee or your tea, or plug in your earbuds and get moving. Here's Bet Howrigan, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Bet. Welcome to the Nourished Child Podcast.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to talk about dairy farming and school nutrition, school wellness. And before we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got into dairy farming, and maybe a little bit about your family, if you care to share.
Okay, well, I grew up in a city, not a big city, but a city. And 34 years ago, when I married my husband, who was a dairy farmer, I became a dairy farmer. I'm also mother to 3 seventh-generation dairy farmers and 1 accountant. We have 1 son-in-law, 2 daughter-in-laws, 2 granddaughters with a grandson on the way in November. And besides being an active member of our farm staff, I'm a teacher at the Fairfield Center School. I started teaching there when I graduated in 1983. I've been there ever since. I'm very proud of both occupations and the work that I do in both.
Wow. So tell me what a day is like for you, because I imagine you're blending both dairy farming and teaching on a day-to-day basis. Is that right?
I do. A typical day here begins around 4:30 in the morning. For many years,
girl after my own heart. I love it.
I love my mornings. For many years, I bed and fed between 60 and 100 calves and heifers before and after school. But much to my dismay, they built a facility that's too far away for me to do that. But I am now going back into taking care of the young stock before and after school again. After I leave the barn in the morning, I try to get to school between 6:30 and 7 o'clock to set my day, which school starts about 8:15. Oh, to back up, on my way to school, my way to touch base with all of my guys that are still here on the farm is I deliver coffee to them and have a quick chat, because it might be the only time I see my husband or my 3 sons all day. Off to school I go, and once I get to school, a typical school day for me begins about 7:45, because I do a Fuel Up to Play 60 before morning school program, an active program. We have anywhere from 30 to 100 students in the gym doing something active, which varies every day. Or if it's a beautiful day, we go outside. From there, my days are just like any other teachers. A lot of rewards, a lot of demands, but our typical school day. At the end of my school day, I might have school meetings. Whatever I have, I then meld with going to the barn. Some days I pick up my granddaughter and we go to the barn together. Other days I'm at the barn. I feed and bed my cows again, do all the necessary work, whether I'm running for parts or filling in for a milker or driving a tractor. From there, meals have to be delivered when the guys are in the field. So my sister-in-law and I take turns delivering up to 15 bag lunches wherever they are so that they don't have to stop work. And then it's back home for a couple of hours of schoolwork or farm paperwork, but we try to get to bed by 10.
Wow. It is a packed day.
It is a packed day, but I love it. So
Yeah. What grade of students do you teach?
This year, I am with 4th and 5th graders. I have been teaching here, like I said, since 1983, and I've taught everything now except for 2nd grade. We're a small school, so we kind of have to fluctuate with the numbers and the demands of a different group. This year, I happen to be the oldest and most veteran person in the building. So, seniority, finally.
Whoa, seniority. So I know for myself, I put in a full day of work. It's not as physical as your day. But I know for myself by, 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I am bone tired some days. And I can imagine that you're feeling that same way.
You are correct. There are days, it's not an easy life, but it's one that I love. There are days that I could just curl up and read a book. And my guys are really good. They know how busy I am. Like today it's open house. They'll cover my calves, just like if they needed something, I would cover for them. But that's it. I've been living this life for 34 years. So it's kind of just the way it is. It's and the nice thing is I no longer have to drive to the gym because my gym is the barn.
Yeah, I would say you're getting a lot of physical exercise.
Yes.
And you get to bring do you bring all your grandchildren to the barn and onto the farm, or?
Well, we do when they're here. We have one granddaughter that lives on the farm. Her father is one of our farmers, and the other granddaughter is with our daughter who out in California. Her father's with the Army, so they're stationed there right now. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What would you say, as you look back, your children, you raised your children on the farm. Now many of your children are working with you on the farm. What would you say the benefits of raising a family on a dairy farm are?
Oh, there are so many. Our children, it was just wonderful. They learn responsibility at a very young age. They are always learning from hands-on. They were right there with uncles and grandfathers and cousins. It's definitely a family-oriented childhood. They would learn to use what they had. They never threw anything out like the other 6 generations that I married into. They learn to appreciate, and they're wonderful about being stewards of the land. They grew up with cousins as their best friends, and those best friends are 6 cousins that work together on 4 dairy farms with their 3 uncles. They grew up with nature. They always had animals around them. They were outside and dirty all the time, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Their friends from grade school right on up always wanted to come to the farm. So we always had extras around. And I think the nice thing was we raised our kids doing what we loved to do, and we made them a part of it. It was hard work. Days are long. We had very few family vacations, but we always do find time to smile and laugh and joke and play. And, it's a different life, but it's a lifestyle you love.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It sounds like a child's paradise in a lot of ways.
I think it is because when I take my classes to our farms, it's very hard to get them away from them. They always want to go back. And we're very fortunate. One of our dairy farms is within a quarter mile of the school. So we can take our students there anytime we want.
That's amazing. You said stewards of the land. What do you mean by that?
The land is part of our livelihood. So we are very conscious of what we put on the land, when we hay things, what we're doing around waterways. We do cover crops so that erosion doesn't take place. We plant trees on riverbanks. Our whole business revolves around land and water. And we have to be especially careful of what we do to our land and water so that our cows can produce quality milk, be healthy. So I don't think people understand that what we do, we're very conscious of. There are so many rules and regulations we have to follow, and we're glad to follow them. It's not always easy, and it is, sometimes there's a lot of money involved in doing it. But without good land, without good water, we don't have a good product.
Mm. Well, how do you deal with things like drought or excessive rain? I mean, I know a lot of the parts of the country this year particularly have had a lot of rain. How would a dairy farmer deal with that?
You adapt your day. We're speaking about the drought. We go through spouts where we are buying water. Our cows drink up to 60 gallons a day, each one. So that's a lot of water. And when you don't have water and you're trucking it in, it's a big expense. But that's an expense that you have to pay for. That's your livelihood. With the rain, you do a lot of praying. You do a lot of, okay, we're going to be doing this today so that as soon as we can get our equipment on the land and hay or get our corn in or crop or whatever, everything revolves around that. And, I think the only thing that we truly, truly shut our farm down for would be a wedding or a funeral. Those are things that we don't miss. But if it's a birthday party, I'm sorry, we're not going to be there. The kids, our kids grew up, Christmas doesn't happen until the cows are fed, until the cows are milked. So our lives revolve around that, and we're glad to do it. Our animals are our children and our family. And as far as drought and rain, there's not much you can do. You work around it.
Well, and it also sounds like a benefit is your children have learned delayed gratification, which is a challenge for a lot of children in this day and age to learn and know.
And our granddaughter's 2.5 years old, and she already knows, Lainey, wait, Daddy's still working. And we go to wherever the men are working with the kids. That's something we've always done. So if they're over at another farm, we take the kids over, we picnic there during supper. Supper goes, it's better than Dunkin' Donuts delivers. It's Bet's Chow Wagon.
Yeah. So you deliver dinner to wherever everybody's working?
Wherever everybody's working. Anybody that's working on the farm gets fed.
Gotcha. Do you try to eat together, all of you, or as many of you as possible? Or
we do. We really do. Sometimes we have to hand sandwiches out so that tractors and things can keep moving. Sometimes we take a 20-minute break and everybody stops and stands around a truck and has pizza. But when we're not cropping and our kids were growing up, we ate together. It might be at 8:00 at night, but it was a family dinner.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say has influenced how you feed your family or how you fed your family when they were younger and the foods that you chose? How was all of that influenced by running a dairy farm? Did it have an impact on your decision-making in those areas?
Not really, because I grew up with, my parents always made sure we had a healthy diet. And my kids, that's what I made sure for my family too. We had small gardens, but that was another task on the farm for us at that point. The kids loved it, but it wasn't always that we could take care of it the way I wanted to. My mother-in-law was fantastic at it. Maybe now that I'm not so busy with my children everywhere, I can get into the making of the grape jelly and all, the applesauce and all of that and filling my freezer. But at this point, I'm still teaching school and doing what I can do. We're as wholesome as we can be. We look for fresh fruits and vegetables. Store-bought cookies were a treat. Everything was homemade. And when I was able to, it was always homemade bread. Our family grew up on whole dairy. So, whole milk, everything was very whole milk, cottage cheese. But, that was the way it was.
Have you watched some of sort of the ways that you've raised your own children trickle down to your children raising their children? Do they sort of?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of mom in my kids. So.
Yeah. So when we talk about, I wanted to just touch base a little bit on milk production and some of the milk myths that are out there, because there are quite a few, and we won't go through a bunch of them, but I just want, the listeners out there to be able to have a good understanding of the steps to getting milk on the shelf at the grocery store. I know you're starting your day raising these baby calves, and they're obviously going to grow up to be able to produce milk. How do you get milk from the cow to the grocery store? What are the steps?
Okay. Well, the first step is always milk safety. All the steps have milk safety in them, but the first job is to keep your cows healthy and the barns clean. Everything has to be clean. The cows have to be comfortable and well cared for, because the healthy cow will produce the quality milk that people are looking for. Another step in getting milk from farm to market is inspections. I don't think people realize that dairy farms are regularly inspected by state sanitation inspectors. And they check the milking equipment, the barn, and the cows to check for cleanliness and safety issues. Providing the safe milk supply is really, it's important to do things on a regular basis. The cows like to be milked on a regular basis. That helps keep any unhealthy practices down. Like the cows stay healthy when things are regular and clean. Another step is keeping your milk cool. The milk from the cows goes right through sanitized pipelines to the bulk tank in the milk house. And there it's really quickly cooled to 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower to keep it fresh. So cool milk is good milk. And once it goes to the bulk tank, it's taken by truck to the dairy or the processing plant. The milk is picked up at every farm by an insulated transport truck no more than 48 hours after the milking is done. So it's usually from farm to processing. Sometimes, depending upon where the processing plant is, it can be as easy, it can be a couple of hours, but it's never more than 48 hours. From there, it goes through pasteurization, and that's the process of heating the milk to high temperatures for a short period of time to make sure that it's safe to drink and eat, using it to drink and eat. During this whole process, milk is tested every step of the way. It is tested up to 17 times before it gets to the grocery store. Every tank, there's a sample from every farm, every tank. And then there's another sample taken from every tanker truck. So if a tanker truck has anything wrong with it, they are going to then run multiple tests on every single tank sample from the farms. So 17 times this milk is checked and checked and checked for all kinds of different things.
Bet, what are some of the things that they're testing for?
Residual antibiotics. That's the big thing that I think. I mean, I'm not up to date. I don't know a lot about all of the testing. I do know that there's a strict protocol that has to be followed, and anything that is outside of that protocol by any little bit, that tank's gone. The whole tank, not just that farm's, because it can't be separated. But you can lose, 10,000, 50,000 gallons of milk. So you want to be very careful. And the last step people don't realize is the consumer's responsibility. Once you take it from the store, the consumer has to, what we call the 3 C's: keep it cold, keep it covered, and keep it clean. That's their part. Because if you pick up milk at the grocery store and then it's 80 degrees and you have it in your car for 5 hours, of course it's not going to be good when you get it home.
So in the case of antibiotics, that would just be something that would be used for a cow who got sick, presumably. And then you're just checking to see if the antibiotics have not cleared. What do you do with a cow that's sick? Do you keep milking it and just not use its milk until it's finished its antibiotics? Or
that's a great question. A lot of people don't like the use of antibiotics in cows. And I get that kind of, but our cows are family members. And just like any of our children, we use antibiotics only when necessary. We work very closely with a veterinarian. Our veterinarian is on site every 2 weeks, but is also on call 24/7. So none of our treated cow's milk goes into our tank. They are milked with a different machine. They're milked into a separate tank. The milk is then dumped right there on site. It doesn't go into our tank at all. Do mistakes get made? Yes, they might, but very, very rarely. We're so clear. All the cows that have antibiotics are marked thoroughly. They wear bracelets. They've got colored stripes, the whole thing. When we do choose to use an antibiotic, it is through strict protocol with everything is followed by the rules on the antibiotic, just like you would a child. If it says, 1 tablet, you're going to give it 1 tablet every 12 hours, whatever it says. But, milk down the drain is money down the drain. But to us, the animal health and welfare comes first.
right. And it sounds like secondarily keeping that animal healthy and well functioning is a top priority. It doesn't sound like it's desirable to have an animal get sick and have to be on antibiotics at all.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And that's why, when I'm in with my calves, I know my calves. I'm checking them. I can tell if, let's say, 492 isn't acting like she was yesterday. I write that down. I talk to the boys will check, the vet will check, it's like a child in school. I know when they're just not acting like themselves. And my boys are so in tune to every one of their milking cows. It's the same with them.
I like that analogy that you use with your kids, because I think a mother and a father also know that about their own child. You know when your child's not acting right. You know when they're coming down with an illness. Can you help the listeners also understand the difference between regular milk and organic milk?
Well, by the time it reaches the shelf, there is no difference. Conventional milk or regular milk will use antibiotics when necessary. Organic milk is just basically not using things used on grass and whatever. But when it comes down to the market, it's all the same. It's gone through all the same tests. It's all clear. There are niche markets for that, and that's fine. It's whatever makes people happy, I guess.
This episode of The Nourished Child is brought to you by New England Dairy and Food Council. As a mom and nutrition professional, I love so many things about milk. It's a simple way to get high-quality protein plus other key nutrients kids need to help power through the day's activities. I was raised on milk, and my 4 kids have been raised on it too. New England Dairy and Food Council is a nonprofit nutrition education organization staffed by dietitians that are dedicated to providing the public with evidence-based dairy nutrition information, on-the-farm experiences, youth wellness opportunities, and more. Follow them on social media at New England Dairy or visit www.newenglanddairycouncil.org to learn more. Now I sort of want to dig into a little bit of your experience as a teacher in the schools and, just the role of milk in schools. What I'm curious as to, and I know you're at a small school in Vermont, but, milk is very much a part of the lunch programs across the nation and breakfast programs if schools are offering those. What kind of trends are you seeing in consumption of fluid milk among students at your school?
Well, we've seen for a while, we saw a downswing. And what we realized was the availability of vending machines really played a big part in that. So we took the vending machines out. Kids do not drink the fluid milk at school, right out of the carton like we would like them to. And my Fuel Up team does tests every year, and we talk about this and we work with it. And through our taste tests with the fluid regular milk is the kids do like milk. They just don't like the school milk. And then when we have been delving further at home, they get 2% or whole milk. It's the taste of the milk. It's not warm. It's just the taste of the milk that they do not like. And we did get fluid consumption up quite a bit when we offered a taste test of smoothies. So we did a taste test with smoothies and saw our breakfast just skyrocket. So we now have smoothies on our menu, both breakfast and lunch, every day. And our consumption has gone up as far as dairy. The same thing happened when we offered the yogurt parfaits. We saw dairy go up. The kids, they like dairy. They love cheese on anything. But it's the fluid milk here in school that I think that is an issue nationwide when I go to the Fuel Up summits that we've had, is that kids do like milk. It's just not what we're offering in school.
It's really interesting, even in my own situation. My son drinks tons of milk at home, but won't drink it at school. And, I see some private schools are moving to sort of that big tank of milk where you just kind of pull out your own serving. And I remember schools moving to the plastic containers instead of the carton, the paper, stiff carton. But, plastic is an issue. And it's just, there's so many complicated factors that lead into it.
It is. I mean, it really is. And we've seen some of the schools locally move into the milk machines that the kids serve themselves and everything. And I would love, it's so funny because we had one of those at our weddings. How many people pull one of those in? But we would love to see that, but we don't have the storage facility for it here at school. We have no place to really put it because we use our gym for our cafeteria, for our auditorium. But one of the things that I don't think parents realize, I mean, I don't know what you serve at home, whether it's 1%, 2% whole, but 2% milk has a lot better taste than the skim or low fat that they're offering here at school, because my kids used to call it city milk. It tastes like water. But whole milk is only 3.25% fat. People think that when you see whole milk, I've even had people think that it's like 100% fat. And I'm looking at them like, wait a minute, think about this. It's 96.75% fat free. Most of your hamburger's not that,
Yeah. So interesting. I don't know if we're there yet. There is some promising research about whole milk in terms of satiety and vitamin D status in children. It's promising, but I don't know that we have enough research to move forward with that because, we have all the cardiovascular research that suggests a lot of extra fat in the diet can be problematic. But I really think it's a totality of the diet. And
I was just going to say that the whole thing. The whole thing. Yeah. I always feel like my own children were full or, they were satisfied with whole milk. Therefore, they weren't reaching for a bag of chips. And that's the wrong stuff for them to have.
I feel the same way about, my kids as well. I always served milk at dinner and raised them on whole milk. Of course, when they were young, the recommendation was whole milk for the first 5 years of life. So that was a while back. So I always followed that. So they, of course, had a taste for it. Then we moved into the low-fat milk phase for a while, and consumption was not as good. And I the last 5 years turned back to whole milk, especially for my son. He's an athlete, and he really likes it. And I really do think it's filling and satisfying. It tastes good, has a good mouthfeel. And I know that, not only from a calorie and protein perspective, I also know he's getting a good amount of vitamin D, which is really hard to get in food, and a great amount of calcium. So I don't know. I personally, my personal opinion is that it works well for my family, but we are also not running through the drive-through. We're not ordering pizza 2 times a week or eating French fries or things like that. We have a really good, healthy diet with lots of fruits and vegetables. So I feel like it all sort of balances itself out.
Right. And I think as my students here would say, well, then you and I have a connection.
Oh, that's cute. So let's talk about school wellness, because you're really active in that. It's, I think as we look across the United States, a lot of schools are really, and really have been over the last 15 years, I would say, grasping this wellness. I remember at one point, probably about 15 years ago, every school had to write a wellness policy.
Yes.
And they took those those measures to write those policies. And then I'm not sure how much of those got done. But now I think even more recently, health and wellness in schools is really becoming a bigger focus. It's gaining momentum. What would you say, as somebody who's been in the schools, both as a parent and a teacher, what are some of the changes you've seen take place in schools as it relates to child wellness?
Well, it's funny because I've been in the school system forever, and I was kind of always the teacher that kind of thought outside the box. And knowing my own children, I've always had movement breaks. I've always provided a healthy snack for my students. And often it was like, oh, that's kind of a waste of time to do that, those 10-minute breaks or those 5-minute breaks or getting up and, doing exercises. But now it's becoming the norm. And you see more and more classrooms that use active movement. They use the Go Noodle that's on YouTube. They do walking. We have a walking club. Here in Fairfield, we have a healthy snack provided every day for every student. So that's, the teachers decide what fits into their schedule, but they have a healthy snack. To schedule those within the day is huge, because once you get them into your day routine, the kids need them. None of us, when we're at meetings, we don't sit for 4 and 5 hours. We get up, we walk around, we get a coffee, whatever. Kids need that movement to get their brains going, to get their bodies moving. Another big thing is the flexible seating that you're starting to see in classrooms. I have yoga balls. I have, standing desks. I have it all in here. Kids will test them all, but they certainly find the thing that works for them. And, that little movement on a yoga ball, not bouncing, but just that body movement can often settle a child that has some anxiety or energy issues. So I feel like we're on the right path. More and more schools are doing walking programs. More and more schools are picking up like the Fuel Up to Play 60 program, which has truly become part of my life. It was something that fit me so well. My love for dairy and my love for teaching and my love for kids. It was launched by the National Football League and the National Dairy Council, which is funded by the American Dairy Farmers. Its primary focus is to help schools meet wellness goals and encourage youth to consume nutrient-rich foods and get at least 60 minutes of physical activity each day. It's in its 10th year, so since 2009, more than 73,000 schools nationwide have enrolled in the program, that's 3/4 of the schools in the United States. That's a huge thing. Here at Fairfield Center School, we've done amazing things through this program. We have a core team that does monthly planning activities, plus the get up and get moving every morning. And when we do a Get Fuel Up activity, 100% of our students and staff are involved in it. We do a Super Bowl week with activities, Active April Day. So for a whole day, everybody's in the gym or outside and doing all these things. Through that program, we've been able to provide recess carts with age-appropriate equipment for K-2, 3-5, and 6-8. So, we've been able to purchase snowshoes and have a snowshoe program through the PE. We have flag football. We have a great big snow bowl where the middle level plays flag football in the snow and has a ball every year. Another thing that I love about this program is that it gives kids opportunities to become leaders. Those kids that aren't athletes, it's amazing to watch them shine when they can be in charge of something, even if it's something as simple as handing out silly bands at the end of a walk. They become, they've got the shirt on, they're a member of a team that they've never been before. Fairfield Center School has really lucked out. We've had 4 state ambassadors, Vermont state ambassadors, and those ambassadors have been flown all over to the national summits where they learn more leadership skills and bring new things back to the schools. We had one of our ambassadors was flown to the University of Virginia to actually address a conference about student and school wellness. And these are kids that are in 6th grade. That's a lot, for them to be doing that. There's so much that comes from this program, and what it takes is an adult to oversee it. But there's up to $4,000 a year in grant money per school that you can get from this program.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you're doing something almost every day.
Every day we have our Get Up and Get Moving. We meet as a team once a week. And sometimes we plan something big every month. But sometimes the kids will say, you know what, it's a beautiful morning. Let's go out and we're going to have a school-wide walk. And our, the teachers might have to change their schedules. If it doesn't fit them, that's okay. But we're going to offer this, and here we are. They'll go out and teach the kids organized games that they can play. It's just those little things that make the little kids look up to the elders, and then they say, well, I want to be on the Fuel Up team, or I want to play 60 minutes a day and get my little token for it. And those are the things one of the things is to have a milk drinking competition, not a guzzling thing. We're trying to get them that's not it. But but when you get your milk, what milk you don't drink, we're going to put in a bucket. We're going to measure it. What class is drinking the most of their milk percentage wise? So we drag math and language and everything into it too.
What made you start the program at the school?
I was actually at a meeting with my husband who's on the National Dairy Council. And I was like, oh, dairy, getting kids onto my farm, and health and movement, which I'm very, very active. I want it all. So I started. I talked to my administrator, It started out, I had 5 kids involved the first year. By the 5th year, I had 60 kids. And, this year I have to do an application program at this point for the core team. Everybody can be a part of it. But as far as planning things, we have to keep it to a reasonable number. But everybody
sounds like it's really popular.
It is very popular. And the thing is, everything's done during the school days. So kids and parents don't have to worry about transportation. Can they make the meeting?
Right.
Can they make the practice? So that has allowed kids that haven't had that opportunity. And being a farm family, there were times that it was difficult for us. We always encouraged our kids, but it wasn't easy to work around our schedule to fit everything in. And there are families that, they don't have a full support system around to do those things.
So when you as a very senior seasoned teacher, when you look at school today and you look at all the programs and programming that is offered, what's missing?
It's hard to say because we have so much here at Fairfield. I mean, we have the athletics, which, they're cutting PE. That can't happen. We have PE. We have a walking path. We have on-site gardens. We have a greenhouse. We have our own sugar house. So we make our own maple syrup. We have band and chorus. We have the arts. It's hard to imagine teaching and working in a school that doesn't have those things, but that's how close our community is. We strive to make these things happen, even if it's in a very small way. So I think we have to look at making sure that we're taking care of the whole child, inside, outside, finding their likes and finding a way to bring it to them.
What would you advise to perhaps listeners out there, parents, maybe even teachers out there, school administrators out there who might be listening to this show? How do they take care of the whole child? How do they get programming in their schools? How do they get Fuel Up to Play 60 in their schools? But how do they get and address other programming needs?
That's the kicker, because as a small school, we've gone through a lot of that. And I go back to one of the first Fuel Up summits I ever went to down in North Carolina. And Brian, somebody who was a food service person, always said, don't take no for an answer. I really feel that started me saying, okay, I'm going to the PTO. I'm going to be at that school board meeting to talk to them, because sometimes they don't have the whole picture and they need that personal conversation. People can easily say no to a text, an email, whatever. But when you're sitting in front of them and you want to have the discussion with them about it, that's the first step in getting something done. And parents, go out and get involved in your school. Offer to do something. If you have beliefs in something, look into it, bring some data with you, bring people with you. That's what we've done with Fuel Up, is we've gone to other schools that have thought, oh, we can't do this. And then they realize, oh, yes, we can. I take kids to other schools to introduce the program. Give us 10 minutes with your gym full of kids. You'll see that this can work. And I know it's hard to make things priorities, but one voice can change it. Think about what you can do and go for it.
Yeah, no, I love that though. Don't take no for an answer.
Don't take no for an answer.
Everything is figure-outable. That's what I like to say.
Yes. Oh, I like that. I'm going to write that one down.
What is the most important thing you want parents to know about dairy foods?
They are probably one of the most nutritious and pure foods you will find in your supermarket. They're good sources of calcium and vitamin D. They provide protein and other essential nutrients. It's one of the best things you can serve your family is anything dairy.
Let's talk briefly before we wrap this up. Let's talk about the future of small dairy farms, because I know we've seen lots of small dairy farms close across the United States. How important is it to keep local dairy farms alive and thriving?
It is extremely important to keep our local dairy farms alive and thriving. Dairy farmers are the backbone of America. They're hardworking men and women who take pride in providing the highest quality dairy products to their families, their communities, and their customers. They are involved and valuable members of their communities, serving on many boards and volunteering many hours outside their very long work days. Dairy farmers care deeply about the environment and strive to farm in ways that are going to help their communities and reduce any impact in the environment. The local dairy farmer provides jobs, often to students and kids that aren't old enough to have other jobs. We have kids all the time. They contribute to your local economy greatly. People often don't think about, cars and all the different economical places that they go to get what they need. They're stored, like I've told you, they're stewards of the land. They keep the land open for hiking and biking, and they have a deep-rooted history that shouldn't be lost. And, in Vermont, we bring tourists because of our bucolic way of life, I guess is what I keep hearing. But there's such a part of your community. You're going to find, and we do hear that the busiest people are the ones that you can count on. They're the ones you turn to first.
So how can consumers support the local farmer? If you have one in your area, you might not live in Vermont, you might be out in California or Ohio. I'm thinking I've got listeners all over the country. How can listeners support their local farmers?
Well, we're proud to put our product on the shelf at any local store and on the table of our local schools. So just as we support our communities, when a carton of milk, a yogurt parfait, a smoothie, anything with ice cream, any dairy product is purchased, you're supporting the local dairy farmer. And another thing that I think our local consumers need to know, if you have a question about farming or a farming practice, ask the farmer. Call us up. Come visit us. So many misconceptions in social media. Nobody's even talked to the farmer about. Go to the source. Go right to the source. We're more than happy to talk to you.
Such a good piece of advice, Bet, because there is a lot of misconceptions and, just noise on the internet. And I'm not sure that the people are creating that noise have any experience on a farm or know a farmer or have gotten their facts from a farmer.
That's true. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things for the farmer to deal with is we hear something and then we find out that, I don't know, somebody off in Timbuktu came up with this and they've never been on a dairy farm.
How can people find you, Bet?
Okay, I'm available anytime, 24 hours. Even my own students have my phone number to call me. So I am at ehowrigan@yahoo.com. On Facebook, it's Howrigan Family Farm. I'm also under Bet Howrigan, B-E-T, Howrigan, on Facebook. And on the web, we are www.purevermontmaple.com.
Wonderful. Bet, thank you so much for coming on The Nourished Child and talking about dairy farms and being an educator and Fuel Up to Play 60. I super duper appreciate it. You've been very gracious and patient with our technical issues, and I'm going to strangle my platform. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Okay, everyone, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed listening to Bet talk about dairy farming, school nutrition and wellness, her family. She's got a large family. She very generously gave her email. So if you have more questions for her or questions that I didn't ask and you want to know, go ahead and reach out to Bet, or you can reach out to me. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or review The Nourished Child. You can do that on iTunes or on your favorite Android app. Next week on The Nourished Child, I have Rebecca Scritchfield on the show. She is the author of Body Kindness. We get into the hot topics of body positivity, raising body confident kids, and more. Don't miss it. It's a good one. Meanwhile, have an amazing 2 weeks until we meet again. Don't forget to give that kiddo in your life a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child Podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.